Hey guys, it's Jim with Crawfordology. I'm glad you guys could join us tonight. If you haven't been here before, make sure that you click and subscribe. Come and see us and visit us. We've got a special guest tonight. Actually, we've got two special guests tonight. So we're going to jump into some story here in a minute. You know, when I think about all the things that are going on with Afghanistan, all the things that are happening in the world, there are lots of stories that we could tell, but maybe no story better than the story of the Deluzio family. And to do that, we've brought two of the Deluzios with us. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Scott Deluzio and his dad, Mark Deluzio. So welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Super. Oh, let's see. Yeah, so we're on amateur night tonight, you know, as usual.
There we
guys.
are.
All right, we got him.
Yep.
All right.
And by the way, just to let you know, I am the father. I know it's hard to tell.
I was going to ask Mark, sometimes when you get the right camera angle and, things can get confusing. So, hey, I want to tell you, Mark has been a great new friend to me. And Mark in his own right has we could have a whole nother podcast about the things that Mark's done, the people and things that he's done in business and around the world. Very interesting, fun guy to just sit down and have a conversation with. So I know just based on that fact alone, this is going to be a great conversation. But I'll tell you, I have been reading, and I'm not all the way through this. So I'm going to just dump to this really quickly because there is in fact it would probably be good if I actually shared your all's face so that they can see who we're talking to. Here's Mark. And along the way, there is an opportunity for us to look at this book and Surviving Son. And I'm just going to read the excerpt here because I know a lot of you guys are watching this from phones or you're listening. So Surviving Son is a compelling true story that provides the reader with an insight into the life of a combat infantryman who fought in Afghanistan at the same time as his younger brother, Stephen, who was killed in action just miles away. Scott takes the reader on a journey through the upper middle class childhood to his call to service after 9/11. So with college degrees and a bright future ahead of them, they left the safety of suburban life to fight on the front lines in Afghanistan. When Scott was asked why he would do this, he responded, "Why not me?" And I'm going to tell you, I'm 3/4 of the way through. Just in total transparency, I'm 3/4 of the way through with the book, and it is really, really compelling. So again, here we are back to the Deluzios. So Scott, tell us a little bit about how did this come up in your mind? You're in college, you go through college and you're working a job. Let's maybe start at the beginning.
Yeah, sure. So, I was in college when 9/11 happened. I was a sophomore in college, and I knew something was going to happen, and I think like a lot of Americans, I was pissed off at the situation, and I wanted to get payback for what had happened that day, and but I thought to myself, you know what, this is probably going to be more than a desert storm where it's just a short conflict and then you're in and out, and this is going to be something that's going to take a little while. So I said, I'm going to stay in college, I'm going to finish my degree, and I got out of college and I started working. My first job out of college, I was working for an accounting firm, a CPA firm, doing taxes and all that other boring stuff, and I heard a report on the news that said that the Army recruiting numbers they're having trouble meeting their Army recruiting numbers, and that sort of pissed me off. And I was like, what's going on? What happened to the people of September 12th, 2001? Where everyone was patriotic and everyone wanted to go and fight against this enemy and everything like that. What happened to those people? And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, why not me? Why shouldn't I go? Why, just because I have a job and a college degree and all this stuff, why shouldn't I go and fight? I'm looking at all these other people and saying, why aren't they fighting? And why shouldn't I fight too? So I decided to join after that. And that's kind of where it all started,
So you leave the comfort of a nice accounting job. I mean, so we were talking a little bit just as we got started, and many of you know, and let me just pause here for a second to share also with you, Scott, that one of the things that's happened throughout this crazy political season is Facebook tends to throttle our reach. So I'll just ask everybody while we're here, please just share while we're live, so you can have a chance to talk with Scott, talk with Mark throughout this. It is really difficult because most of our audience won't get informed that we're even live until sometime tomorrow. I'll start seeing text messages saying, "Hey, we didn't even know you were on." So it's one of the things that Facebook has done, and it's really maddening when we think about it. We're talking about going to other countries, fighting for freedom, fighting for the idea that founding principles that mattered to the American Republic could be spread around the world. And here in the U.S., where people are totally oblivious to the suffering, to the trials that each one of our American servicemen and women undergo, just as being a participant in our military, and here we are unable to get good reach, even use those basic skills, almost as if we have some junta in the Silicon Valley who's decided to manage distribution. So forgive me, but as we talk through this, I want to make sure that we have time, and as we're thinking about that mindset. So you're living a really comfortable life as an accountant. Your brother joins the military, what, a year before you, 2 years before you?
Yeah, almost exactly a year before me. He joined first. He went up to college at Norwich University, which is a military school, and he had some friends up there who were in the Vermont National Guard, and he decided he wanted to join that as well. So he joined up about a year before I did, and then that kind of planted the seed for me. It was something that I always felt like I wanted to do, but I never really did it. And then once when I started learning about the whole process and what he went through, through his training and everything like that, I started thinking to myself, this is something I can handle. If he can do it, I can do it, right? So.
Right. So Mark, tell me, as a dad, how do you feel? There's a war going on. You have two sons that want to become or do become, but infantry guys. They didn't pick the easy. They didn't choose, hey, I'm going to take. I want to be one of the rear echelon folks. I'll work back here in Qatar, and I'll do something. Not taken away from anybody who worked in Qatar, by the way, but these guys want to go right to where it's all happening.
Well, obviously I'd be foolish to say I wasn't concerned. We were, both Ben and me. And when I looked at these two guys, first of all, we were very proud. We brought them up very patriotic. I mean, we got pictures of them, taking them up to Westover Air Force Base to see the troops coming home from Desert Storm. And we always brought them up very patriotic. I've got a video of Scott at age 6, 7, and Stephen 3 years younger, singing the national anthem, holding the flag. So we always brought them up to respect the military, the law, and all that. And then when they joined, we were obviously concerned but proud. And then these guys not only picked the infantry, but they decide they don't want to become commissioned officers like the Army wanted them to. They did very well in basic and all the tests and all that. And obviously they want to become officers. And they said, no, we want to be with our guys and we want to stay on the ground with our guys. I'd say that lieutenants and what have you don't see war. Of course they do, but that's how they were kind of brought up. And so, worried, yes, very proud. So
Scott, you join, and I love, by the way, and I'm just going to talk about a couple things in the book that really connect with me too. The blue cord ceremony, having that moment. And I think when I got my blue cord, it wasn't really something, you're proud, but it wasn't something that that my family or anyone was there for. So we were all going, my whole unit was going straight from basic into airborne school. And because of that, a lot of our families deferred to say, well, we'll come down 3 weeks later for airborne school graduation, which is what my family did. And I didn't maybe get the real importance of that. And I'll tell you, I think it takes years to recognize that when you put that blue cord on, you've really joined another brotherhood, right? That exists. And interesting that both of you, if I read right, you put his blue cord on and he put your blue cord on, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And so I put his blue cord on when he graduated the summer before from basic training, and then the following summer he had already been to Iraq, and he just got home a few days before my graduation from basic training.
Like 2 days, Scott. I think 2 days, something like that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So having him home, and of course I'm at basic training, and the whole time, I don't have access to telephones or internet or anything like that to find out how he's doing or anything like that. I'm just getting letters in the mail every once in a while from my parents, just letting me know yeah, he's doing okay, or whatever he's doing. And so then come graduation day, and he's there, and he's home and he's safe, and it was just for me it was the best thing in the world, because I had been worried about him that whole time. And then he got to put the blue cord on me, and that was just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, pretty cool having a combat veteran come back and and put the blue cord on you. And so you guys end up going to a lot of the pre-deployment training together. It just kind of by happenstance, right? That your units are in the same places or overlapping from time to time. And tell me about that.
Yeah, so his unit, he was in the Vermont Army National Guard, and I was in the Connecticut Army National Guard, and the infantry units in the respective states all fell under the same brigade. And that whole brigade was getting activated to go to Afghanistan in late 2009 and into 2010. And so our training took place. We started off at Camp Atterbury in Indiana, and we were there for several weeks at the same time. That overlap was going on, going through qualifications and medical screenings and all the stuff that you have to do before deployment, vaccinations and things like that. But so we were there together. We didn't get a whole lot of time to spend together. It's just whenever we had a few minutes of downtime, we try to link up and chat for a little bit, just see how each other are doing. And then actually kind of funny story. The last day that I was at Camp Atterbury, our unit was we missed our scheduled time for dinner, chow time, and so I finished up what I was doing, and me and a couple of our guys snuck off to the chow hall to try to grab some food before our long bus ride that we're going to Fort Polk down in Louisiana. And it just so happened to be the same time that Stephen was in the chow hall, and he called me over and he said, "Hey, come sit with me." But I had packed a whole bunch of stuff that I was bringing with me, and I had it on the stuff hanging off of my assault pack that I was bringing with me, and it was just extra crap that I had with me. And he bust my balls so bad when I walked in, and he just was going on and on and on, and that's just the way he was. I mean, Dad, you could talk about that too, but he would always just rib on you. But as soon as somebody else might have said something to me, he would like jump down their throat. It's like, no, you don't get to say that. That's my brother. I can say that to him, but not you. So
yeah, always true, right? With brothers as they go through life. And I have 4 sons. They saying you love me like a brother may not always be as the gentle and kind sort of love, but yeah, I get
right.
it. So okay, so you have this dinner, you head down to Fort Polk, and
Yeah.
and interestingly, you're in lovely Fort Polk, going into the cool weather, I'm sure, of Fort Polk. So, do you guys meet up there again?
No, so he had actually the training schedule was kind of like reversed. So he had gone down there first, and then he went to Camp Atterbury, and ours overlapped while we were there, and he was there, and then we went to Fort Polk after that, and that's how that whole situation happened there. But it was a few weeks that we were at Fort Polk. Doing the training down there, and then from there we left pretty much straight to Afghanistan. We had a couple stops along the way, but that's where we left. So the last time I saw him was at that dinner.
At that dinner,
so it's
okay. I was trying to get, was that the dinner, or was there another dinner at Polk? Okay, so
no.
So folks, just take that in for a second. If you think about moments in life that you'll never maybe get the fullness of, it's those sorts of times that happen, and then off to Afghanistan, you have no idea that this is going to be the last time you sit down and eat with your brother and do those sorts of things. So
right.
I think it's awesome that you guys had that camaraderie in that moment, and you got something to remember in a really positive way, that last parting. So you're in Afghanistan, and I don't want to take away too much from the book, because what we've jumped to about the middle of the book already in this conversation. So here's what I want to tell you. If you stop, grab this book, go to Amazon, get a copy of this book, and let me share it again here so that we've got it up. Get a copy of this book. You can buy the book on Amazon. You can get an autographed copy. I downloaded mine to the Kindle, and it's been really fantastic. So, as Cynthia says, we want you to read the book, because what the book will do that I can't do here well enough is help you to really understand some of those moments that, as just young soldiers, you go through. Some of the things that just deal with life in general, and some of those things that absolutely will connect back with, if you've been an infantryman, you'll just feel those things. And I could almost smell the smells and hear the voices, probably different for me in the 80s than for you in the 2000s. You mentioned getting off the buses and getting yelled at, and how these guys would be better. They should be running public transportation. We'd move things along faster. Well,
yeah.
for me, it was cattle trucks, right? And we were getting off cattle trucks. So I totally have connected, enjoyed those moments, just thinking back maybe a few years, right? A few years. So,
right.
so you're in Afghanistan now, and tell us, there's a lot going on in Afghanistan. Tell me, you first get to Afghanistan. Tell me what your first thoughts are.
Yeah, so when we got to Afghanistan, we first landed in Bagram, and that place is like a city in and of itself, and I started thinking to myself, well, if this is what Afghanistan's going to be like, it's not going to be that bad, it's it's actually pretty nice here, right? And then we from there we went to Jalalabad Air Base, and it was nice, but not quite as nice, it felt safe, and there was stuff there, and it wasn't quite a city, but it was like a small town, maybe, if you want to put it that way. And then we got to our fob, and that was a totally different situation. So as I'm getting off, so we flew from Jalalabad to our fob, which was right on the Pakistan border. It was about 2 miles away from the border, and we got off the helicopter at night, and where we landed, it was outside of like an inner perimeter. It was still inside the base's perimeter, but there was like another secondary perimeter on the inside of the base. And at first it seemed to me like we were getting off the helicopter like just out in the middle of nowhere, because I couldn't quite see all the walls that were around us, nighttime and everything, and it was just really hard to see all of that. So I'm thinking, we might be getting in contact just walking to our fob here, and so that was clench your butt cheeks a little bit as you're walking off the helicopter, but turned out
how
like
old
everything
were you,
was fine there. But
Scott, sorry, how old were you?
I was 28 at the time.
28. Okay.
Yeah.
So a young guy, 28 years old. You're in Afghanistan. All the city life that you've left behind, even in Afghanistan, is now behind you. You're on the fob.
Yeah.
Tell me about your first impression of the Afghan people.
My first impression, I didn't really know what to expect. You go through all the cultural sensitivity training and all that kind of stuff before you get there, but you don't really know what to expect until you experience it and you see it. But I remember we were in an Overwatch position, kind of near the border, and I actually saw a guy just kind of lift up his, we call them man jams, but the clothing that they wore, like the long, it almost looks like a dress kind of thing that they wear. He kind of picked it up and he squat down and he took a dump right on the street and, wiped his butt with his hand. And I was like, this is the most bizarre thing in the world to me right now. Like there's, like that's just, and then he just like got up and
we don't do that in Connecticut.
Away.
Yeah, right.
No, we don't do, and I don't think we do that in very many places either. But
right on.
It was like the most bizarre thing to me, and that was like when I was like, you know what, I'm in a different place right now, and these people are not the same as we are, and I have to think that way, and I have to treat them that way. Like, they're not going to have the same norms and expectations that we might have in society either. So, but it was fine. We had good interpreters. The guys that we had there, they were able to they worked really hard for us, and they made the connections with the locals that we needed to make, and they were really great for us. So overall, I think it was a positive experience, and I think we did some good in that area.
So Mark, how long was it when he left for Afghanistan before you heard back from him and knew, okay, they're safely where they're going?
Wow. Well, safely is a relative word, right?
Yeah. For the moment, they made it. Yeah,
I don't know, what was it? Maybe a week or so, Scott. Maybe a little more.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't recall exactly how long, but the good news was that we were in pretty constant communication with both the guys via cell phone, which is kind of nice. We got to talk regularly anyway, which was always good to check the box like, okay, well, they're okay. As of this moment, they're okay. And then you hang up and say, okay, well, what's going to happen in the next hour, So, but, the good thing is that they were really good about calling us, on a regular basis. So.
Now that's for anybody who's ever waited for something like that, every second seems like an eternity, and when it goes days and days, it's incredibly difficult. And I can't imagine, I just can't imagine being in that particular spot. So now Scott, you're on the fob. You tell me about a typical day. What what happens? Give me your cycle.
Yeah, so our company was the only one on that fob. Plus, we had some support elements and stuff on the fob as well. But as far as like the day-to-day operations, we broke up the three platoons in the company into three different rotations that we would do. So one we called the gate, where we would go down and to the border, and where we were was a area called Torkham in Afghanistan, and that's like the main border crossing between Afghanistan and Pakistan, where I believe about 80% of the NATO supplies were coming through because they'd get shipped on cargo ships, and Pakistan was the nearest port, and so they would get on a truck from there, and then they would drive through Pakistan into Afghanistan. Um, and so we secured that entryway for all the trucks to come through, and we made sure that the right supplies were coming through, and everything. We kept track of some of the numbers on the trucks and everything to make sure that the right ones were coming through, and everything. But we also did other stuff there too to make sure that that people who are high value targets or anything like that weren't crossing the border and just kind of trying to blend in, because there's a lot of foot traffic that went back and forth across that border. So we had some biometric screening and stuff like that we would use. So if someone, for example, someone's fingerprint was found on a bomb somewhere, we'd have that in our database, and then we'd do a random sample of people and find out, okay, yeah, well, this might be that person. So we did a lot of that kind of work, and we worked on securing that border. And the other part of it too was the Pakistani military, who was on the other side of the border. They would sometimes shut down the border crossing, and it seemed like they did that less often when we had a presence there. And so that was another kind of, it wasn't really a show of force, because I don't think we were ever going to attack the Pakistan
right.
the Pakistani side, but it was more like, hey, don't pull that crap with us, and just keep it open.
Like a padlock, it keeps the honest guy a little more honest, right? So
exactly.
No.
Yeah.
So you're doing these patrols, you're experiencing, various levels of traffic, various types of people. Tell us about a day, first shots fired where suddenly you realize, hey, this is for real.
Yeah. So, there was actually one occasion that I talked about in the book, and it was a situation where there was a kid on the back of a jingle truck, which if you've been over there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's these elaborately decorated trucks that they have, and this kid kind of pops out of the back of this truck, and he points with what looks like to me a rifle at some of our guys. And I'm standing about 75 yards away or so at the time, and so I raise up my gun to shoot him. And as I'm looking at him through the scope on my rifle, I realize it's just a piece of wood. And like I came this close to pulling the trigger and killing this kid, which I've made shots that close before. Like that's not a hard shot to make. I very easily could have shot him, but I just looked at it at the last second, and I was like, you know what? No, that's a piece of wood. that's not a threat right now. And so the kid crossed the border, the direction they were traveling, and he was gone. And as far as I know, he was fine. But that was something that really affected me. And prior to that moment, I was the type of person who, if anyone said, hey, would you protect a kid? It's like, yeah, I would never do anything to hurt a kid. But then at that moment, I was considering just pulling the trigger and killing this kid because of, that situation. It just really, kind of was a bad situation for me,
Yeah, I think that, that's notable and worth talking about, because people don't necessarily realize the level of anxiety that you're living under, where everything that goes crack, everything that goes thump is potentially deadly to you or to your brothers or to somebody that you're sworn to protect. And
right.
we saw this happen a lot in Iraq, where there was a lot of criticism that was levied on troops who would create civilian casualties, and what sometimes was failed to be at least understood is that the methods and means that the threat will use to create disruption inside our force and to create those events that are both traumatic psychologically as well as dramatic when they present them on the news. They have no bounds. They have uh, no issue whatsoever with putting a child or a woman or an elderly person in front of the threat to bear the brunt, to be the TV carnage that's shown, while they spin stories about the terrible people inside this U.S. invading force. So I always struggled when I hear these sorts of things come out, and the news, reports as if, guys were raising their hand to go over there and deliver mayhem on really good, kind, innocent people who weren't trying to do bad things to them. So I appreciate you sharing that story. Those sorts of things can definitely have an impact that's long lasting on a life. And I know a number of folks who were put in that situation, and not always was the outcome as good, right? So
right.
It's part of the reality of war. So Mark, when you hear these sorts of things, I'm sure you've heard this many times, these stories at this point, having gone through the years and the book writing. It's got to still put a lump in your throat and at least fatherly concern.
Yeah, and when I hear about these, Jim, these kind of stories, and I got to go back to maybe a bigger picture, and not to get this into a real political discussion, but the what Eisenhower warned us about 60 years ago, the military-industrial complex. You start thinking about how the heck did the greatest military in the world not be able to beat, excuse my language, a bunch of camel jockeys in 20 years. And it was by design. And I know, and you probably know more than I do, given your background, that we could have done it pretty quickly. And I do know guys that took out ISIS from Fort Bragg with video games and drones, and we could have done that with the Taliban. But when I hear, when Stephen told me probably about a month or two before he died, he said, "Dad, you need a lawyer over here to fire your gun," because Obama changed the rules of engagement greatly, and it put a lot of risk. And so you think about that type of thing. You think about those rules of engagement, and you got to kind of walk away and say it's by design, because the little I know about war, which is probably fits in a thimble compared to you two guys, and I've read about it. Collateral damage, unfortunately, is primarily one of the key ways in war. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are really examples of that. And now you take that when the Taliban are like hides in a school or hides in a hospital and you can't fire, so you start thinking about, you say to yourself, is it all by design? And is that really one of the ways they want to elongate this war to support that whole, military industrial complex? So when I hear that, and I hear the type of things like, Stephen couldn't kick down a door, he had to knock first. In Iraq, it was different, stuff like that. So it enrages me more than anything that we're even in that kind of situation.
So we've seen two really different styles of supporting the country when we are at war, and I think we saw from the last administration a significant reduction in rules of engagement and the ability to really go and win and fight and win. And you're right. I mean, you make a really good point, Mark, that sometimes there are, I don't know if it's the political wins. I don't know if it's just a different belief, if it's lack of real situational awareness of what's happening on the ground, that these rules of engagement get amped up so that they're very difficult for our soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines to deliver effective defense of themselves without first coming under a definite life-threatening attack, and then being able to put eyes on that attack That's a real deficit. As Scott, I'm sure you would remember from just ambush training, right? You have to think so quickly that you have no time to do anything in an ambush other than just start responding. And
Right.
tell us a little bit about how you perceive the rules of engagement.
Yeah, I mean, the rules of engagement were, I'll, kind of echo what my dad was saying there, but they were strict. There was a lot of steps you had to go through before you could engage a target. I think that it was. I think they said it was the four S's. You have to shout first, then shove, then show your weapon, and then you could shoot. So after you've gone through all four of those steps, then you can finally shoot someone. And so if you're shoving someone, now we have rifles, right? We have M4 rifles, which are designed for longer range. They're not designed necessarily for arm length distance like a handgun might be, but we have to be close enough to shove the person, in order to, proceed through all of those steps. So, I could shout at someone, far away, but shoving them, that's a different story. That person needs to be within arm length.
So what I really want to hear, Scott, is about the first time somebody had a gun and you were able to shout and then convince them to let you get close enough to shove them before you return fire. I'm sure. In fact, I would actually like to have some of our politicians who create these rules come and demonstrate this. They should have to go on the patrol and, hey, show us, because I'm not really sure how this works. I'd like to see you do it.
Hey, can I pick the politician, Jim?
What's that? Yeah.
Can I pick the politicians?
Hey, I would give you that. I would give you that. So Scott,
yeah, so I mean,
tell us.
Those situations are very few and far between, and I think that again, I think that's by design.
Yeah, so everybody knows. I mean, it just doesn't sound sensible, and I think sometimes what gets played back here is that, well, no, they're allowed to make decisions if they feel like they're in harm's way or if they're under threat. But what sometimes people don't realize is when you're out on the fob, you're remote, and you need some bigger guns. You need some air support. You need some indirect fire. Getting that cleared has a similar level of difficulty. People have to confirm that those people shooting are actually shooting at you, that they're actually a threat to you. Now, I understand that we're going to ensure it's not a friendly force. We're going to do things like that. But each one of those approvals takes time, and it slows down the process. And we're talking sometimes about the intensity, of conflict is, by design. It's not fought in these elongated burst of high energy. It's fought in quick burst of energy, right? And sometimes these decisions are made very quickly, and you need the help when you need the help. So the more handcuffs that get put on these guys, the more difficulty it is to deliver a safe victory for the home team. Now, so you go through these, you circle through many different types of operations, I'm sure. If you want to share with us, tell us about the day Stephen dies.
Yeah, so that day we were on a mission. We flew in at night on Chinooks to this mountaintop, and our mission was a joint mission with the Afghan army. And so we get off the helicopters, and we're on top of this mountain. And because we're working jointly with the Afghan army, who did not have the same kind of night vision technology that we had to wait until daylight to go down into this village at the bottom of this mountain to go conduct our operations, because they couldn't see what they were doing. And so we do that, and we go around, and we're looking for stolen Afghan army uniforms that the Taliban had stolen, and we had intelligence that they were in this area, plus weapons and other things like that. And if we found any enemy there as well, that all the better. We can take them with us or take them out. Either way was fine with us. So we go through the village, and it was fairly uneventful. We found a few things, some uniforms and stuff, and we disposed of those. Some weapons and things like that. We had EOD guys there to blow those things up, and so that was a pretty uneventful day. We didn't really have much going on during that operation, but I get a call on the radio, and our commander is looking for me, and so I'm an E5 sergeant, and having the chain of command just get jumped like that doesn't happen very often. So I'm like, okay, what the heck, what's going on? Why is he looking specifically for me? And I'm thinking to myself, something bad happened. Like one of my guys lost some sensitive item or something like that. And so I start checking everybody's equipment, and I'm panicking, like, what the heck's going on? So eventually I get back up to the top of the mountain where he was, and I link up with him, and he says, come over here, take a knee. I got something I need to tell you. And he says, your brother was his unit got ambushed, and he got hit. And so I started thinking to myself immediately, like, okay, where is he? Logistically, how can I get to him? Get me on a helicopter. If he needs like blood or something, like an organ or whatever, like if I have it and I don't need it, he can have it, And then the commander said, you're not understanding what I'm saying. It was like he got hit and he was killed. And so I was just so devastated. I broke down. I was crying and everything, and it was just a bad situation. I just was really hard to keep it together then. And I think that's pretty normal. Like most people are gonna experience that kind of situation too, right? But then about 20 minutes after finding out about Steve getting killed, we started taking contact from the same village that we just came from. And so the way this joint operation worked was the Afghan soldiers were the ones who were supposed to go in and clear all the buildings that were in this village. And so they probably just didn't do a good job, and they missed, whatever weapons that were there and whatever enemy was there. And so we started taking RPG and small arms fire from this village, and I had to put my grieving aside. I had to, as much as I wanted to just go and annihilate everybody who was in that village, I had to put my own grieving aside, because I had guys who were under me who were relying on me for leadership. And the last thing I wanted to do was have something bad happen to them. And so I stopped the grieving process there. As angry as that made me, I stopped what I was doing, and I went and I did my job. So that was kind of that day, and how I found out about everything that took place with Steve.
So I can't imagine that, and I'm watching the comments that are flying here, and it looks like most of our audience can't imagine this either, and the idea that not only do you not really get the time to grieve, but you have to go straight into, it's the fight mode. I've gotta be concerned about everything else that's going on around me, and
right,
and that's harsh. That's a hard truth that happens. I don't know how many times it's happened in the last war that we've had family members go through this, and Mark, you may know actually some of this. Do you know of any other situations like this in Afghanistan or Iraq?
The only one I heard of, Jim, was 3 brothers out of 5 were killed, but all at different times, and they weren't all over there at the same time. I think they're out of the Midwest, I think, Scott. Is that correct?
I don't know exactly where they're from, but I have heard about that, and I do know of several others where there were other siblings who were killed in action, but they weren't necessarily, the ones that I know of anyways, weren't necessarily in the country at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. No, we had some guys who I work with who are brothers, both aviators. And I thought it was pretty interesting in Iraq. They were both Apache pilots, and would sometimes fly in and talk to each other's brigades. sort of the preacher and the teacher, right? And a fantastic Texas family. But you can't really minimize you're a close family. I mean, you guys have and folks, I want to go back again to suggest you got to pick this book up and check out the story here that's shared in Surviving Son. An Afghanistan war veteran reveals his nightmare of becoming a Gold Star brother, and Scott DeLuzio is the author. We're joined here tonight with Mark DeLuzio, the father, and we're talking about Stephen and the day that he was killed in Afghanistan, just really merely a few miles away from Scott. And I can't imagine the difficulty that left you, not just in that day, but as you come back to the new reality. And Mark, God bless you for a parent. Everybody knows this is the worst possible outcome when we think about what if scenarios. And I thank you guys for the dedication to the country, to our ideas. And I want to come away from your story for a minute to fast forward to today, because as you were telling that story, you were talking about a couple of things that seem to be out of place. And you talked about the Afghans not having night vision, and you talked about the uniforms, being stolen, mm-hmm. and things that the Afghans couldn't do that we could do because of the gear and equipment. So today we watch the stories that are unfolding in Afghanistan with the withdrawal and the rapid withdrawal from Afghanistan. Let me pause on that. I want to get both of you on this to hear, how does it make you feel? What do you think about it?
For me, how this makes me feel is, as far as, looking at the equipment that was left behind, all that equipment that the Afghan army that we were working with at the time, they didn't have that equipment, but now the enemy who we were fighting over there has access to all of that equipment, the night vision and the thermal and you name it, they have access to it now. And so that's, it leaves me scratching my head, like, why, if we're going to stop there anyways, why couldn't we have equipped them with that stuff way back then? And, maybe that would have been a more effective way to conduct those kind of missions. But I think I said before we started this episode, a lot of times people will look at this as a failure, this mission in Afghanistan as a failure. We wasted 20 years. It was all for nothing. And they think about it that way. But I like to think about it in a different way, try to see some of the positives that came out of it. And I look at it like we went there and we did good things. We built schools. We had the infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, the water, electricity, all that kind of stuff that we brought into some remote areas to make the lives better for the people who live there. And some of the kids who went to school when I was there, they're adults now, and they benefited from the education. And granted, it's not top-notch education that they got, but it was education nonetheless that they got. And I got to imagine, as a parent myself, I want better for my kids than what I had when I was growing up. And I can only imagine that maybe these people would want the same thing for their kids, now that they're adults and, probably having kids of their own. And so I'm hopeful that sentiment will spark a little fire in some of these people and give them the incentive to fight back against the Taliban, who has basically taken over the country.
Yeah, last week we had Perry Blackburn on, who was a fifth group lieutenant colonel, was one of the first guys on the ground in Afghanistan. Part of the horse soldiers, and Perry said, "Hey, I gave my youth fighting for this country," and he's still fighting now, by the way. So he's still one of those guys that's working on the withdrawal to get folks out by hook or by crook, to get them out of country. He feels as if those members of the team that really bought in to our idea, that bought into freedom and a republic and a form of government that could be better and could create opportunity, shouldn't be left there in Afghanistan looking around wondering what happened to the good guys. Where did the good guys go? So
funny you mentioned Jim. We actually know one of the horse soldiers. He was from Connecticut, and he was a Green Beret who was a medic in that group, one of the first ones in there, and told us some interesting stories. But when I think about the question, first of all, I echo everything Scott says. But when you ask that question, I kind of think of it in there's two ways to answer it. There's a political way to answer it, and then there's a humanitarian way to answer it. So the political way, of course, I already expressed my idea about nation building and the military industrial complex. We should not have been there for 20 years. Okay. But however, the humanitarian side of this is, first of all, Scott, Steve, all the military men and women did what their country asked them to do. Okay. And it's not their job to question command. And so they put on the uniform and they fought for our freedom. Right. And last time I checked, out here in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, no bombs are going off yet. And it's because of guys like you, Jim, and Scott, and all the other Steve and everybody else. But the humanitarian side, in addition to what Scott said about schools and roads and bridges and electricity, there are people walking on this earth today because of guys like Scott, Stephen. They're here today. They're alive today. So if you think about it from that side of it, in addition to all the infrastructure in the school and education, lives are saved, and you can't forget that. So anybody who says it was a failure and it was for waste don't know what the hell they're talking about, number one. And number two, the government never defined winning. So how can you say you lost? Okay. So they did what they were supposed to do. There were the few people like you, Jim, and Scott, and others, Steve, that had the guts to do it. Okay. And to even think about it being a waste, to me, is mind-boggling to me, because if the war had the right national interest, these are the same guys. You guys are the same guys that would have put the uniform on and gone fought and truly protected us. So is it a waste? Well, I think you're foolish if you think that. And there's no way I look at that as a waste. So, and I don't look at Stephen's death as a waste, or Scott's torment that he's going through and has gone through as a waste. Although obviously you wish you can wish it away, but you can't. And so thank God we have people like you guys, because we'd be a different country. Because I'll tell you right now, it's not the politician that keeps us free. It's guys like you that do it. So,
so I'm going to say, I want to just say thanks so much for that, Mark. But I want to say it's guys like Stephen and guys like Scott who have done that, who really did hear the call of service right at the beginning of this war. I've not gone, to be clear, to Afghanistan or Iraq. I was out of the Army by then, too old and fat to go off and tromping around in those countries. By the way, that's something that they do to you, and you're going to find this out later in life. I hope not, Scott, but late in life, you'll find they injected you with something at Fort Benning that will show up around your waistline. and you've got to fight that. I know it. Me and my friends, we talk about it. We know that that's where it happened. Either that or that's where
Wait a
they
minute,
get
Jim.
you.
I only went to Fort Benning for graduation day. Okay,
See,
and
that's
I
how
have that
dangerous
too.
it is. That's how
It was
dangerous
in,
it is, right?
It's in the air, I think.
you
I think it's in
can't
the
get
air.
close to that. You can't get close to that. No.
Well, kind of funny story about that. The book cover. I actually put my uniform on for the first time in over 10 years, just recently for that book cover to have the photographs taken, and the best thing the best fitting thing out of my entire uniform were the socks. So I know what you're talking about.
Hey, I don't believe that. I was just about to say, dang you, you're one of those guys that was not susceptible to the air of Fort Benning. So no, I
I'm
think
still wearing the same size socks from high school, Scott. So what do you?
Yeah.
Neckties too, same thing.
No, hey, look, guys, I've really enjoyed this, but I can't tell you guys enough. You've got to read the book, because I'm not going to tell you the end. I mean, you see that Scott's here. He's doing well. He's got great family support. He's got great memories of his brother. He's got great memories. You can see him on the wall behind him of time in Afghanistan. There is a brotherhood that you join, and people don't understand it until you do it. There will be guys for the rest of his life that he can be apart from for years and see him, and in 5 minutes they will pick right up as if it's been the day they met or the last day they were together. So there are things that live like that, and it's part of what makes America great. It's part of what makes our country different, and this brotherhood that we develop. It's the great parents, it's the great upbringing, it's the belief in something bigger than yourself, that some people, the Bible says many are called but few are chosen, and count yourself among the chosen, Scott. So I appreciate you guys joining us tonight. And
hey, Jim, before we go, I want to just tell one quick story that kind of tells you the character of Stephen.
Please.
And Scott has the same character as well. But I'll just tell you this one story. On the day he died, I only learned this on the 10th anniversary of his death. He's now been gone 11 years, August 22nd. And one of his guys, who we became very good friends with, Jesse, was under Stephen's command. They were going to go up into this village. They knew the Taliban was waiting for them. They ended up having bad intelligence, but in terms of numbers of Taliban. But anyway, as they were going up, Stephen said to him, "I'm taking your place. Give me your M203, which is a grenade launcher, right?" And Jesse says, "Well, why?" He said, "You're staying back." And Jesse says, "Why?" He said, "Look, I'm going up. You got a wife and 2 kids. I'm going up." Okay, so Stephen goes up, and I think it was minutes later that he got killed. But Stephen was engaged. But you want to talk about brotherhood? He's saying, "Well, wait, you got a wife and 2 kids. I'm going up for you." And they were in a firefight on a regular basis, but this one here, for some reason, had a lot of iffiness to it, if you will, I think. And so Stephen, basically sacrificed his life for him and his family. So
it's hard to think about, Mark, but when people make the ultimate sacrifice, and in particular friends, family, and they see it happen, or they realize they have some tie back to it, frequently there's a really deep guilt that comes with that, and a heavy heart that says, "Hey, why not me?" Or this was supposed to be different. And Scott, I'm sure you chased some of those demons along the way, and I just want to say, the best thing that honors those folks is to live well, really, and to carry those things forward into the future, and you're doing it right. You're carrying that memory. So thanks for that. That's well done.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely agree 100% with that. Live the best life that you can. Because their sacrifice was for for us as a country, all of us. And if you're not living the best life that you can, then what really was it for? So
Yeah.
so take that as a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got a bunch of questions I want to ask Mark, and I want to ask you too, but I'm not going to ask because I want people to go and read the book. And if they go and read that book, they're going to hear, how the family dealt with the impact, how the family came together, the things that disrupted the family along the way, and really your personal journey from there to here. And look, guys, you've met the heroes. We bring these folks in from time to time. We don't bring in many guests at all. So when we bring in a guest, you should pay attention. You should pay attention. Go read this book. It is, one more time, I want to come back to it, make sure I get it on the screen so that everyone can see it. Surviving Son. Go to Amazon, buy the book, get an autographed copy. This is something that's a great story to tell that commemorates not only some great lives, but some great Americans, a great American family, and the idea that there are things bigger than yourself. And just take the time. Just go do it. Go do it. So I want to leave a second here for you guys to have any closing comments. And Scott, I'll start with you.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you talking about the book and giving that information out to people. You mentioned autograph copies. I'm more than happy to sign copies. If people go to survivingbook.com, you can buy your autograph copy there, and I'll get that out to you and ship it out. So I'd really appreciate that if anyone wants that, or like you said, Amazon is always a great place to get it too. So and thank you for the opportunity to share the story with your audience, and and everything that you're doing with us.
Hey, thanks. One more thing. I do have one question. Tell us about the Drive On podcast.
Oh, yes. So the Drive On podcast is a podcast I started about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago now. And it's, the purpose of the podcast is to help out veterans. I noticed that a lot of veterans were struggling with one thing or another, whether it's PTSD or addiction or homelessness or whatever the case may be. And so I wanted to do something about that. And so I started the podcast. And what I do is I talk to other veterans on the show, and I'd love to have you on the show too at some point. But I talk to other veterans on the show and share their stories, so the struggles that they went through and how they overcame those struggles. And the whole purpose of that is to give hope to other people who might think that they're alone in whatever it is that they're struggling with, and show that there's hope for them too. And I also interview providers of services to veterans that may not be your typical traditional VA type service. Not everybody is comfortable with using the VA, or maybe not even qualified to use the VA for whatever services that they might need. And so there are other alternatives out there, and a lot of them are free or at low cost to veterans. And it's just another option. So if you've tried using the VA for, let's say, mental health services, and it doesn't seem to work out for you, and you're ready to throw in the towel, well, there's other things out there for you. There are other options. And if you think you've explored them all, you're wrong. There's so many options out there. I guarantee you have not explored them all. So that's what I try to do, is I try to talk to a bunch of different people, and just really giving hope to the military community, to the veterans, the families, and letting them know that there's stuff out there for them.
That's fantastic. And we're sharing the link to your podcast here in the show notes. So, I'm sure you're going to have some new followers after this. So again, leaders lead, Scott, and that's what you're doing. So thanks, man. Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say this. First, thank you very much, Jim. You've quickly become a really good friend, and look forward to continuing to develop our relationship. I think you owe me dinner next time, though.
I think you're right. right?
Or did I buy last time? I can't remember. No, but one of the things I'll say is, to end on a kind of a fun note, because Stephen would want us to be laughing. He was that kind of guy, and so when Stephen died, and even till today, people say to us, "Oh my God, you guys raised such great kids, and you're such great parents." Your wife Diane, we just been married 41 years now, and we feel bad. We don't feel that because we didn't put the uniform on. They're the ones that did it, right? We were even called heroes. And I'll just give you a little glimpse about how imperfect of parents we are. Stephen turned out to be a Yankee fan.
Oh,
okay, yeah, and so I just want to let you know that Okay, so I try to bring him up a Red Sox fan, and he, so just to let you know that all's not rosy over here in Parentville. Okay, so
well, hey, I tell you, the audience definitely has got to have a sense of how close you guys are as a family. You'll get a better sense if you read the book. You'll get the I didn't know if I was going to get a poem right here. I thought he might have written a poem at the end of the podcast, but next time I'm looking for a poem to close out the podcast. So these folks are great folks. They're really great Americans. I can't say thank you enough. Nobody wants to become a Gold Star family member. You guys do it with class, and you really carry on Stephen's memory in a way that goes, it's fitting for his service and for the person that he was, and lives on in memory. So thank you all. Thank you so much, Scott. Thanks for doing all this for the veterans. Thanks for being involved and staying involved and living well, man. That's great. So,
thanks, Jim.
So
thank you,
everybody. I hope you will get out, read the book, and we'll see you guys next time.